Hello, hello. Welcome to Just One More Thing, a podcast about knitting and craftiness. I'm your host, Janessa, and thank you so much for coming by and spending a little bit of your knitting time with me today. It's been a busy, busy week. Very busy. Do you notice something? A new finished object to share. So I put it in the title right up at the very beginning because yeah, I'm it's a spoiler. I'm wearing it today. It's finished. This is the starting point. Mystery knit along from Joji Locatelli. This right here that I'm showing you in the middle is Clue 5. Yay! So I'll take it off and I'll show you in all of its. I'm so happy with this wrap. It's ridiculous. Oh my goodness. So, first of all, it's huge. I think the finished measurements in the pattern were like 26.5 wide, and mine blocked out to more like 27, which is fine. So, a nice wide shawl. The length was supposed to be 72 inches, and mine blocked out more like 86 by the time it was all said and done. There we go. Here, that's what we'll do. So, this was one of the starting points down here. You cast on 2 triangles. So that was triangle 1, and we knit all of those. Here was clue 2, these 2 bands, and then clue 3 was these 2 bands, and that twisted rib, and then clue 4 was this lace, and then clue 5 is where you joined the 2 points together on each side with another triangle, another set of triangles, and that's clue 5. So I'd showed the other side, but it's just a mirror image of what you already saw. It was one of those patterns. The construction was so unique. Well, unique to me. I never made a shawl like that before, where you're like knitting from both sides and you come together in the middle. I know there's a lot of patterns like that out there. I just have never made one before. So I was really enamored by the construction, the color work, and the different patterns, the stitch patterns, like where it's mostly garter, but then every once in a while you throw in a twisted rib or something. I really enjoyed that as well because it made it interesting and it kept you going. And I just completely showed you guys the wrong side. I mean, there's really no right or wrong side, but on the lace side there is a right side, and some of the garter looks better from one side to the other, but I'll kind of do a little pass by again. My kids are gonna want to come in and interrupt 5 times today. I just know it. There's the other side. Whoop, I keep dropping it. Yay. So I did make a few adjustments, or I don't know really what you want to call them. Modifications, maybe is the best way to say that. The clue 1, the starting triangles, were pretty much as written on, you can see the difference between the two. This little section right in here was as written. That's the twisted rib. That was my second triangle. On this one, it's a little harder to see, but I completely messed up the twisted rib. It ended up a little bit more twisted seed stitch, maybe. And then also on this first triangle, this dark section right here is actually, let me take it out. It is my color 3, though it looks nothing like any of my other color 3s. So this was color 3. It's a hand spun BFL. I was working from a couple of different skeins. So you can see there's some, especially this one, and I'll show you where this one came into play a lot more, but for the most part I was working from these striped skeins. And it just so happened that when I started, I wasn't super paying attention, and that whole section ended up being like a dark black stripe in that yarn. So it doesn't mirror the smaller stripes that end up throughout the rest of the pattern, which is fine. No one's gonna notice. And I didn't really start making modifications until I got to clue 3. So here's clue 3, which is this purple, the pink and blue stripes, and then this twisted rib. This twisted rib was supposed to be in that color 1, that light gray color right there. That's the eyelet part between all the stripes. You were supposed to just continue on in color 1. I didn't really like the way that looked in my yarn. It just kind of was bugging me, and I wanted the distinct separation of like that was an accent line between all the bars. So I brought in a 6th color, which was actually 2 different yarns held together. So this is like, they're both from Knit Picks, so I think this is like their oyster heather something or another. It's in the shadow lace, and then that's like a gray, kind of bluish gray. Actually, this gray is almost identical to, sorry, I'm digging over here in my yarn, my leftover yarn. So those 2 were almost identical, but when I added that brown in on top, it just gave it a really nice kind of muted difference. So I really like how that turned out, and it looked really nice between that gray and that brown. It was just kind of like a nice in-between color. So that was my first modification. Then in clue 4, yeah, because this was the end of clue 3. So then in clue 4 you started the lace and the eyelets. This is where I ran out of color 4, which is that hand spun purple. So I couldn't even like put it on hold and go buy more. Let's see if I can find another little bit. I weighed all of my leftover yarn yesterday, and I had 2 grams left. That was all I had left of color 4. So it wasn't going to be enough. I was 6 rows short. There was supposed to be a 4th eyelet row. So with a little help from Joji, I switched to color 2, and I did a wider band. Instead of 6 rows, I did 10. So it made for a wider band. And I don't know how annoying, my air conditioner just kicked off, so I don't know how annoying that's going to be throughout the podcast. Hopefully not too much. Maybe you can hear me better now. If my voice just got louder all of a sudden, I apologize. But anyway, so I put in 10 rows of seed stitch right there to end clue 4. So most people's that you're going to see that big X there in the middle is going to be this eyelet color. So mine is, it still looks the same as everyone else's. I just have that random seed stitch there in the middle where the X comes together. Then we're not done with the modifications. So because I was out of color 4, anywhere in clue 5 that it said use color 4, I switched over and used my color 3. Oh, I was also going to point out that where I did this big band of color 3, you can kind of see over here where it stripes more, and over here it's a bit more marled. It's because instead of using the stripes, where did it go? I just had it. Ah, here it is hiding. So instead of using the stripes, I used that barber pulled. Same color, just different effect. So I brought this back in color 5. Anytime it said use color 4, I used this. And I used it for color 3 as well. So, find my middle triangle again. These little blue parts here are actually that color 3 in that barber pulled yarn. I think my kids are outside playing with something. So this, like this color 3, I use the regular stripe. Up here, I use the marled. This section right here, there we go. So, oh, the sun came out. Yay. So that section there was supposed to be color 2, which is that blue gray. I used, because I had only used this color, the lace weights held together in this section, I wanted to bring it back. So I used it there instead of color 2. And I used seed stitch like I did here because I had, this was the only other place in the pattern that I'd used that. And I'm really not a fan of how the twisted rib came out in that yarn. See how it kind of, I don't know. I like how it came out in the seed stitch a lot better. That worked a lot better for it. So quite a few modifications. If I were to make this again, which I think I might, I'm going to use seed stitch instead of ribbing. That the kids didn't shut the door right and it keeps blowing open. It's distracting. I'm going to use seed stitch instead of twisted ribbing. Wherever it calls for twisted ribbing, I'm just going to substitute seed stitch because I like how it looks better. Personal preferences. Overall, now that I'm done showing it, I can put it back on. So overall, I really liked that. Like that. Tuck it underneath. It's so cozy. Even though it's hot here today, I do want to wear it throughout. So, yay. Very happy with how this turned out. It's very, very large, very snuggly. It will make for a great winter wrap. I can see me using this a lot. All right. Next up, so on the needles, knitting wise, I really didn't, you guys are gonna be like, whatever. I really didn't have much knitting time this week because I was on vacation. I got a really good chunk of knitting in on Wednesday when we were in the car. Most of Wednesday was spent packing. Now that I've got the hiccups, Most of Wednesday was spent packing, but once we were in the car, I got a good chunk of knitting in before it got dark. And then while we were there, I didn't get a ton of knitting time in because we were visiting family. So, I was keeping kids entertained and they were wanting to swim. And so there was a lot going on, and I didn't get a ton of knitting time done while I was there. I think I finished one triangle while we were there. So, like, that one triangle got finished while I was on vacation. Then another big chunk of knitting got done on the way home because it was all daylight while we were driving back. I nearly finished the second triangle on the car ride home. The first triangle took me 3 days of vacation time. The second one took me about 7 hours in the car. I think I was just starting that stripe section when we got home. And so then the rest of it was done after we got home. So, I finished this on the 12th is when that got done. And then yesterday. So, all told, there really wasn't a lot of solid knitting. Not like I'm used to. Let's put it that way. I didn't have the knitting time that I was used to. And now here come the garbage trucks. Lots of noisy interruptions in the background this week. I apologize. Anyway, on to the Makariri shawl. We've started a new color. So here's, I'll show you from the beginning. Casting on the stripe section, lace, another solid garter panel, the second striping section, the lace, and then this is where we left off last time. I was working on the solid garter section. And now I'm on to the final stripe section. You will also remember from last week, I don't know where I put it, I had a little tiny ball of this eggplant color left, and it wasn't going to be enough to do the stripes and the lace for the last section. And so I took advantage of the fact that I was in a larger city that had proper yarn shops, and I went yarn shopping. And I came up with this lavender color that I think coordinates well. Like, it's that nice in-between color. Let me see if I can. There we go. So it's kind of a nice in-between of the gray and the dark purple. Like, it coordinates well with both, I think. So this is Cascade. Is that Venezia Sport? And while it's listed as a sport weight, it is nearly the same. Like, you really can't tell a difference if you look over here where it's pretty much the same as the fingering from Knit Picks, which is the stroll fingering that I'm using for the main part of the body. So weight, I'm not worried weight wise that it's different. It's close enough for me, let's put it that way. This is color 177. It's 70% merino wool, 30% mulberry silk. Does not give a colorway, but we're calling it lavender. So there's that. So not a whole lot to show there, except I've done the first stripe in the purple. Hopefully this will be a finished object next week. perhaps we will get that off the needles. That was pretty much yesterday's knitting, was finishing up the garter panel and putting on that first stripe. Exciting stuff. I take that back. I worked on something else yesterday. I'll show that to you here in a second. While we were there at the yarn shop, I had Brooklyn with me. And Brooklyn's kind of a crocheter. Like, she enjoys it when she sits down and does it, but she doesn't always want to sit down and crochet. But she spotted something and got really excited about it and just like, oh please, oh please, oh please, can I have this? She found the pinkest of pink yarns. And I looked at it and I was like, Plymouth Yarn Encore, I bet that's pretty much in my price range. And it was $6. So I was like, yeah, you can totally have that. That is totally your crochet project worthy. Because I know that she probably won't do a whole lot with it. But if it's yarn that makes her happy and will get her to sit down and craft with me, I'm all for it. So we did a little yarn shopping on vacation. Those were our vacation yarns. The other thing that I worked on yesterday, I can pull up, okay. I grabbed a couple of yarns laying around and started another project for the Prayer Shawl Ministry. I'm showing you the wrong side. Here we go. Without all the ends hanging out. It's basically nothing fancy, just a big old garter, or not garter, a granny square. I'm using the Lion Brand's Hearts. I don't know. It was the one that I used as the border on the Tree of Life Afghan that I just finished. This was the red border for that, and there's obviously like a whole skein left afterwards, so I'm using it up because it coordinates really well with the red from this yarn. It was from Michaels. It was a self-striping from Michaels. Don't remember what it's called. I apologize. Basically it was just pulling stuff out of my acrylic stash, and I figured between these two I could get a good sized baby blanket. We have been needing more baby blankets that are gender neutral or boy friendly, and I figured this would be a very fun boy friendly or neutral baby blanket. So just working on a basic granny square, nothing fancy, but I started that last night. It probably won't even get a project page on, I don't know, maybe I'll give it a project page, but probably not. Because there's just, like, there's no pattern there. There's no, I don't know. It's just what it is. Something simple. So, whoops. And now it just like all fell. That's okay. On the car ride to Oklahoma to see my family, I worked on Emerson's Flax Light sweater. And then when we got home, I changed it over to a bigger needle so I can actually spread it out a little bit. So here's the top, the sleeves, or where the sleeves will be, and then I've done that much of the body. So it's coming along. It's not pooling as bad as it was up here. The last time I properly showed it to you, I was complaining because it was pooling really bad in there. But now that I'm working like in the round on a larger circumference of stitches, the pooling has eased quite a bit. I'm still getting a couple spots where it's bad, but not as bad, I guess. So suppose there's not a whole lot exciting to share about this pattern when it's just stockinette in the round, but I'm pleased with how it's coming out. And hopefully now that I've got this big project off the needles, and the Makariri's almost done, like this can start taking center stage of knitting. So those are the knitting things that I've been working on and the crochet things that I've been working on. No spinning at all got done because, again, vacation, so I didn't have time to do any spinning. But before we left, I did have time to work on the rug hooking chicken. A very small amount of time on the rug hooking chicken. So, let me see if I can reach the yarn that I've been using. Hi, how are you? Okay, so this was the yarn. It's very tangled. I didn't even bother to put it into a ball because what I've been doing is kind of looking through and being like, oh, that'll make a nice piece for a cloud, and just pulling off that bit and then like rug hooking it in. Or, you know, like, oh, there's some blue, that'll make a nice sew. I'm just kind of pulling out bits and pieces as I see them and then filling in these little spots. I'm going to try and do the tail is going to be much more like embroidered looking, and I'm saving the rug hooking bits for like around here and the feathers, and then I'm going to try to do the face in a more smooth. So I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. There is no pattern or rhyme or reason to this. It's just a way to use up unusable yarn. Like this probably I could have managed to knit something with it, but I wouldn't have liked it because it's so overspun in some places and underspun in others. I just, you know, it wasn't something I was going to enjoy knitting, but it is pretty fun to rug hook with. So that is that project. Like I said, just a teensy tiny bit of work got done on it, but I'm happy with it. And it seems to be holding up well in the back. That's from the back side. I didn't know how well it would hold, but it seems to be holding in there pretty good. Mainly because this is such a loose weave of burlap. Like, I really didn't know how that was going to work. I am also on the lookout. Right now I'm using just a teeny tiny crochet hook to get down in the holes and pull the yarn through. And that's working for the most part. I would like a proper rug hooking tool if I'm going to do more of this. I don't know if it will help, but there you have it. So that is kind of what I've been working on this week. I do have a project on deck. We'll call it on deck. I'll throw up a picture of it. It was kind of the next installment in the fading patterns. There was Find Your Fade. What was the sweater one? So Faded. And now I think this next one is called Free Your Fade. I downloaded the Free Your Fade pattern because it called for fewer yarns. And you might recall this yarn. I'll throw up another picture. It was a hand spun of some bats that I did from, I don't know, it was back in like go back to like episode 3 or 4 or something, and you'll be able to see me talk about it. But anyway, it was a bat that I spun kind of gradient style almost and left as singles, and I think it will make a super Free Your Fade shawl. So that's kind of on deck when I decide I need to cast on something new. That's what I'll be working on. Vacation was fun. The kids had a blast. They got to do a lot of fishing. In fact, I have to show you these adorable pictures of my kids fishing. They were so happy. Brooklyn has been fishing before when she was very little. I don't think she really remembers it. Emerson has never really been fishing before. This was kind of his first experience with it. And it was definitely the first experience that he's going to be able to remember of fishing. And the pond behind my dad's house is a catch and release pond that for the whole neighborhood. The homeowners association stocks it and lets everyone fish out of these ponds. So the fish get quite large since they are, caught and then released. Nobody keeps them. Had we been out on a public river or pond or something of that nature, especially here around home, that definitely would have been keeper fish for dinner. But yeah, they had a lot of fun with it. They each got their own fishing poles now, and I'm sure they will be begging Ben to take them fishing all the time. I have fished. It's not my favorite activity. I have a big fear of snakes, and I spend the whole time fishing, not paying attention, trying to be okay, there are probably no snakes around here. Maybe if I make a little extra noise, any snakes in the vicinity will slither away and I won't have to look at the snakes. But I spend a really large amount of time stressing about the fact that I might see a snake while I'm fishing. So I've just kind of learned that, you know what, I'm better off at home waiting for the fish to come to me, and then I will cook them for dinner. It's one of those things. I will totally let that be a daddy activity on their own. So I don't have to stress about snakes that may or may not be lurking near ponds and rivers and open water. We did a little bit of adventuring on the way home. We stopped, where did we stop? We went to the Bass Pro Shop in Tulsa and looked around there. We stopped on I-44 as you're coming up out of Oklahoma. It's just nearly to the Missouri border, but it's in Oklahoma on I-44 heading north. Is it 44 or 49? I think it's 44. Anyway, there's this building. It's like a gas station or a rest stop that has been built over the interstate. It's been there since the 50s and it's changed hands many times. Its current owners, there's a McDonald's and a Subway in there, so it's a good place to stop and eat, and you can eat while you watch the traffic drive under you. The kids, we didn't eat there this time around, but the kids like stopping there and going up and watching the traffic. It was a nice little stretch your legs rest stop. And then we also stopped at Grand Falls Dam in Joplin on the way up. This is the second time we've been there. The first time we were there, it was maybe 2 other people were there. It was really nice. We got to do a lot of exploring. We took a lot of pictures. This time we went though, and it was crazy busy. Lots of people swimming in the river and lounging and basically breaking all of the rules because there's signs posted everywhere that's no swimming. They were swimming. No alcohol. Everyone had the beer. It's whatever. It was just one of those this is not as enjoyable as it was the last time that it wasn't as kid friendly. Let's put it that way. I'll say that. It wasn't as kid friendly this time as it was last time, unfortunately. So we didn't stay long. We basically walked up to the edge, snapped a picture, and we're on our way. But yeah, it was a fun vacation. We had fun at my dad's. Oh, Emerson's birthday is today. He is 6 now, officially. We did celebrate his birthday down at my dad's, but we're having a party again tonight to kind of officially celebrate that he is 6 years old. He's made another trip around the sun. And he has reminded everybody, everything he says today is, he woke Brooklyn up super early. And she was like, no, let me sleep. He's like, nope, you have to get up. It's my birthday. And he wanted a cookie for breakfast. And he goes, can I have a cookie for breakfast? It's my birthday. I'm like, just because it's your birthday doesn't mean you get everything you want. But it's cute. It's funny. Mom life. So I've nattered long enough. Thank you again for stopping by and watching another episode of Just One More Thing. I do appreciate it. And if this was your first time watching, I hope you enjoyed it enough to, click subscribe and come check me out again next week. Share it with your friends. If you want show notes, you can find them on the Ravelry group or on Facebook, and both of those links are in the description box. And yeah, I think that's all there is for this week. So we will talk to you again next week.